My wife's brother's graduation, she said. Let's use our 8-year-old daughter's $100,000 college fund to help him. We'll put it back. I refused. 10 days later, my daughter's bank called. Your wife just transferred $80,000 from her account. I said she didn't have my permission. Then the bank sent me the transfer details, and I saw who she sent the money to. But before I begin, please like and subscribe to the channel. And we'd love to hear which part of the world are you joining us from. Let us know. Now, let's dive into today's story. Wesley Carter had spent 12 years believing that he and his wife were building the same life. He believed it the way a man believes the floor under his feet. Without thinking, without checking. He believed it every morning when he left the house at 5:40 and every evening when he came home smelling like machine oil and hot metal. He believed it when he signed the deposit slips. He believed it when he told his daughter that everything was taken care of. He was wrong about all of it. He just did not know that yet. They lived in a quiet suburb outside Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It was the kind of neighborhood where the same 6 models of house repeated down the street with different shutters, where people put their trash out on Tuesday night and waved at each other on Saturday mornings without ever learning last names. The streets flooded a little every spring. The maples turned early. In winter, the wind came off the flat farmland and pushed against the windows all night long. They were not rich. Wesley never pretended otherwise. He worked as a maintenance supervisor for a manufacturing company on the east side of the city. He kept 14 machines running and 11 men employed and a binder of service logs that he updated by hand because he did not trust the tablet system. His hands were rough at the knuckles. There was a permanent gray line under his right thumbnail that no amount of scrubbing removed. Kendra worked part-time doing bookkeeping for a medical office off Blair's Ferry Road. 3 days a week. Numbers in columns. She was good at it. She had always been good at it. And Wesley would think about that later, over and over, the way a man returns to a bruise to see if it still hurts. They had one daughter, Lily, 8 years old, front tooth crooked, hair the color of wet straw, a laugh that came out of her whole body. She was the center of everything. When Lily was born, Wesley and Kendra had made a promise to each other in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and cheap flowers. They were both exhausted. Kendra's hair was stuck to her forehead. Wesley was holding a paper cup of coffee he had forgotten to drink. She doesn't carry our problems, Kendra had said. Whatever happens to us. Money, jobs, anything. She doesn't carry it. Agreed. Say it back to me. She doesn't carry it, Wesley said. Ever. He had meant it with everything in him. He believed Kendra had meant it too. So they opened a college account. They contributed whenever they could, in amounts that would have embarrassed anyone who did not understand what those amounts cost them. Over 8 years, it grew to a little more than $100,000. Wesley was proud of that account, not because of the number. Numbers meant nothing to him. He was proud because every dollar in it was a decision. Skip the vacation. Drive the Silverado another year, then another, until the driver's window stopped rolling down and he learned to open the door at the drive-thru. Cook at home. Buy the store brand. Put the birthday money from Kendra's parents in the account instead of the toy aisle. They had done it together. 8 years of small choices, side by side at the kitchen table with a calculator and a checkbook. Or at least that was what Wesley believed. Then came Nolan's graduation. Kendra's brother was 33 years old, and he had gone back to school in his late 20s after his life came apart. He had a teenage daughter, a full-time job at a parts distributor, and 4 years of night classes behind him. He had studied at kitchen tables and in break rooms and in his truck during lunch. Wesley liked him. Nolan was not perfect. He talked too much when he was nervous, he apologized for things that were not his fault, and he had a way of laughing at the wrong moment. But he was honest. In 12 years, he had never once lied to Wesley, not even a small polite lie, and Wesley had come to value that more than he valued charm. Kendra had always been protective of her brother in a way that went past normal. She defended him before anyone attacked. She explained him to people who had not asked. When Nolan's marriage collapsed, she had driven 3 hours in the middle of the night to sit in his apartment while he cried. Wesley had admired that once. The graduation party was in Nolan's backyard on a warm Saturday in late May. Somebody had strung paper lanterns between the fence and the garage. There was a folding table with a sheet cake, a plastic tub of ice going soft, and a cooler of soda. Nolan's daughter Aubrey stood beside him for the photographs, 16 and mortified and secretly proud, and Nolan kept touching the tassel on his cap like he could not believe it was real. Wesley shook his hand and meant it. "You did it. I did it," Nolan said, and his voice cracked in the middle of the word. He laughed at himself. "For years, man. For years of falling asleep in a parking lot with a textbook on my chest. Nobody handed it to you." "No." Nolan wiped his eye with the back of his wrist and pretended it was the sun. "Nobody did." Lily was over by the fence drawing on the driveway with sidewalk chalk, humming something. The grass smelled like it had been cut that morning. Somebody's radio played country music 2 houses down. It was a good afternoon. Wesley remembered that clearly afterward. That was the part that stayed with him. It had been a genuinely good afternoon, right up until the moment it was not. Kendra came across the yard with a plate she was not eating from. She touched his elbow. "Can I talk to you?" They walked to the side of the garage, out of the noise, where the grass was thin and the ground was still damp from a rain 2 days earlier. "We should help Nolan," she said. "I already told him. 5,000. I told him this morning." She looked at the cake table. She looked at the fence. She looked at everything except Wesley. "He needs more." "How much more?" 80,000. Wesley laughed. It came out before he could stop it. One short sound, because there was no other way to receive a sentence like that. $80,000. "Yes. We don't have $80,000, Kendra. We have about 9,000 in savings and a furnace that's going to die this winter." She said it then. She said it calmly, the way a person says a thing they have already rehearsed alone in the car. From Lily's college account. Something in Wesley's chest went very still. He was aware of the lanterns swinging slightly. He was aware of his daughter's voice from the driveway, singing to herself. He was aware that his wife had just said the one sentence he would have sworn on his life she would never say. "No. Wesley, no. Not part of it. Not $1 of it. No." Her face changed. The softness went out of it fast, like a light being switched, and what was underneath was hard and ready. "He's my brother. And Lily is our daughter. He'll pay us back." "When?" "When he's stable." "That's not a date." Wesley kept his voice down because of the party, but he did not soften a single word. "That's a feeling. You can't put a feeling in a college account." She folded her arms across her chest. "You're acting like I'm asking to give him the money forever." "I don't care if you're asking for one day," Wesley said. "It isn't yours to take. It isn't mine either. That's the whole point of it." For a second she looked at him with an expression he could not read. Not anger exactly, something closer to calculation. Then she walked away across the grass toward her mother and did not look back. Wesley stood by the garage for a minute. He watched Nolan pose for another photograph with his arm around his daughter. He watched Lily add a lopsided sun to her chalk drawing. He thought that was the end of it. It was not even the beginning. For the next 4 days, Kendra kept finding new doors into the same room. She never opened with the money. She was smarter than that. She started with something else and let the conversation drift, and every time the drift ended in the same place. Tuesday night, while she rinsed dishes, Nolan's rent went up again. "Did he tell you that?" Wednesday in the car, "He needs a fresh start. A real one, not a little patch." Thursday, folding laundry on the bed. "Those credit cards are eating him alive. He's paying interest on interest." Friday, "His car has 190,000 miles on it. He drives Aubrey in that thing." Saturday, "He should move closer to her. He only gets her every other weekend because of the distance. Do you understand what that does to a father?" Every reason was different. Every reason was reasonable on its own. That was the thing that started to bother Wesley more than the reasons themselves. Because the amount never changed. $80,000. Not 75. Not 100. Not as much as we can. 80. He noticed it the way he noticed a bearing going bad in a machine. Not by the sound exactly. By the fact that the sound stayed the same when everything around it changed. On Sunday night, after Lily went to bed, he sat down at the kitchen table across from his wife. The dishwasher was running. The kitchen light hummed the way it had hummed for 6 years because he had never gotten around to replacing the ballast. "I want to ask you something, and I want a straight answer." Kendra had a mug of tea in both hands. Okay. Why 80,000? The pause was small. Half a second. Less. But Wesley had been married to her for 12 years, and he had spent his whole working life listening for exactly that kind of hesitation. Because that's what would make a real difference. A real difference to what? To his life. Wesley. To all of it. His credit cards are around 18,000. He told me himself. A used car is 10. First and last month on an apartment near Aubrey is maybe 3. Wesley laid his palm flat on the table. That's 31. Where do the other 49 come from? Kendra set the mug down harder than she needed to. You're doing math at me. I'm doing math because the number doesn't match the story. It's not a spreadsheet. It's my brother. Then let's help your brother. Wesley leaned forward. 5,000 from savings. I'll go to 10. 10,000. Out of what we have. Tonight. And I'll write it as a gift so he never has to feel it hanging over him. I'll do that right now. She shook her head before he had finished. That's not enough. It's enough to fix his cards and put him in a reliable vehicle. That's not nothing. That's a year of his life. It's not enough. Wesley looked at her for a long moment. The dishwasher shifted into its rinse cycle. You're unusually determined about this. That was the sentence that ended it. He knew it as he said it, and he said it anyway. Kendra stood up so fast the chair scraped. There it is. There's what you actually think. Her voice climbed. You don't trust my family. You never have. You smile at my mother at Christmas, and then you come home and you count what they cost you. I don't trust borrowing a child's college fund. Say it. Say you think we're beneath you. I said what I said, Kendra. She took her tea and went upstairs. He heard the bedroom door close, not slammed, which was somehow worse. Wesley sat in the kitchen until the dishwasher finished. He told himself he had held the line. He told himself the conversation was over because he had ended it. He would think about that later, too. How certain he had been. How a man can hold a door shut with his whole body and never once check the window. 10 days later, his phone rang at work. He was on the mezzanine above line 3 with a clipboard under his arm, and the floor was loud, so he stepped into the stairwell where the noise dropped to a dull rumble through the block wall. Mr. Carter? This is Rachel Donovan. I'm with the bank. Do you have a few minutes? I'm at work. Is this a sales call? No, sir. I'm calling about unusual activity involving an account connected to your daughter's education savings. Wesley put the clipboard down on the stair rail very carefully, as though it might break. Go ahead. There was a transfer of $80,000. It cleared 8 days ago. Our system flagged the pattern, and I wanted to confirm you were aware. The stairwell was cold. There was a fluorescent tube above him with a dead flicker in it. He could hear his own pulse in his ears, thick and slow. 80,000, he said. Yes, sir. Say the number again. $80,000. Who authorized it? The account holder. Cedar Carter. Wesley stood in that stairwell for 4 or 5 seconds without saying anything. What he felt was not shock exactly. Shock is what happens when something arrives from nowhere. This had not come from nowhere. This had been walking toward him for 10 days, and he had watched it come and told himself it was standing still. Thank you for calling me, he said. I mean that. He called Kendra from the parking lot. He sat in the truck with the door open and one boot on the asphalt. Where is Lily's money? There was a beat of silence on the line. Then her voice came, already braced, already defensive, and he understood that she had been waiting for this call for 8 days. I told you I was helping Nolan. How much did you give him? Wesley. How much? 80,000. He looked at the flagpole at the edge of the lot. The rope was slapping against the metal in the wind, a flat tapping sound over and over. Okay, he said. That's it? Okay. That's it for now. He hung up. He did not drive home. He drove to the bank branch on First Avenue and sat across a desk from Rachel Donovan, who turned out to be a woman in her 50s with reading glasses pushed up into her hair and a photograph of 2 grandchildren angled toward the visitor's chair. I need the transaction history, Wesley said. I can't discuss the details of your wife's private account without her authorization. I want to be straight with you about that up front. I understand. What I can tell you is that the transfer documentation lists a receiving party. She turned a page toward herself, not toward him. And I can tell you that the 80,000 did not move in a single clean step. There were several smaller transactions in the days beforehand. Wesley leaned in. Several. That's all I can characterize. The name on the transfer. Can you at least tell me if it's a family member? Rachel Donovan looked at him for a moment, and something in her face was almost kind. Mr. Carter, I'll say one general thing, and it's true of any account. The receiving information on a transfer doesn't necessarily mean the person named ultimately received the money. Wesley sat back in the chair. That sentence would stay with him for a long time. He would turn it over at 2 in the morning, staring at the ceiling with his wife asleep beside him, breathing evenly untroubled. Because Nolan's name was on everything. And Wesley did not believe for 1 second that Nolan Mercer had $80,000. Wesley waited until Monday. He did it deliberately. Whatever he was going to hear, he wanted to hear it when he was steady, not when he was still running hot from the bank. He had learned that on the factory floor, you do not diagnose a failure while the machine is still smoking. You wait until it cools and then you take it apart properly, piece by piece, and you write down what you find. He drove to the parts distributor where Nolan worked and parked at the far end of the lot. He waited until 11:30, then called. Nolan picked up on the second ring, cheerful. Hey, what's up? I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer fast, without thinking about it. Okay. Did Kendra give you $80,000? The answer came without a pause. Not even the width of a breath. No. Wesley closed his eyes. Not part of it. Not close to it. No. Wesley, what no? She gave me 10. Wesley did not say anything. Through the windshield, he watched a forklift cross the loading dock with a pallet of boxes. 10,000, he said. Yeah. For what? She said it was a graduation gift. Nolan's voice had lost all its ease now. It had gone thin. I tried to give it back. I told her it was too much. She got upset with me, said I was insulting her, said she'd been saving for it. So I took it. Wesley, was that? Did I do something wrong? Is this about? Did you sign anything? No. Nothing? No loan document, no acknowledgement, nothing with your signature? Nothing. I swear. Did you give her your bank information? She already had it. Nolan sounded almost apologetic. She's had it for years. When Dad had his surgery, she set up the transfers between all of us so we could split the costs. She never took it out of her system. Wesley wrote that down on the back of an envelope on the passenger seat. Asterisk had account access since 2019. No signed documents. Asterisk Nolan. Listen to me carefully. Did you know she was transferring $80,000? No. Something shifted in his voice then. Wesley heard the exact moment the man on the other end of the line stopped being confused and started being afraid. No. Wesley. 80? She moved $80,000? Yes. Through my account? Your name is on the documentation. There was a long silence. Wesley could hear a warehouse behind him, a radio, someone shouting a number. Then Nolan said something that pulled everything tight. She told me the rest of the money was being held in my name temporarily. Wesley opened his eyes. She said that. Those words. Close to it. She said there'd be some other stuff moving through, and not to worry about it, and that it was being held in my name for a while. Why? I don't know. Did you ask? Yeah, of course I asked. What did she say? She said it was a family accounting thing. Nolan's voice cracked. She said Dad's estate stuff was complicated and it was easier to route things through a different name for tax reasons. Wesley, I don't know anything about that. She does the books. She's always done the books. When she says something about money, I don't check her. Why would I check her? Wesley looked at the bank statement folded on his dashboard. He had looked at it 40 times in 3 days and it said the same thing every time. $80,000 out. Nolan had received 10. Where's the rest of it? Nolan said. Wesley, where's the other 70? I don't know yet. You have to believe me. I would never. Wesley, I've got $400 in my checking account right now. Right now. You can look. I'll open it up and take a picture. Nolan. I'll drive over there and show you. I don't care. Nolan. Stop. He stopped. I believe you, Wesley said. The sound Nolan made then was not quite a sob. It was the sound of a man setting down something heavy that he had picked up 30 seconds earlier and already could not hold. Okay, he said. Okay. But I need you to do something for me, and I need you to do it today. Anything. Don't talk to her about this. Not one word. Not a text. Not a call. Nothing. Why? Because right now she doesn't know that I know what you just told me, Wesley said. And that is the only advantage I have. There was a pause. You think she'd... Nolan stopped. Started again. You think my sister would let people believe I stole $80,000 from a kid? Wesley watched the forklift come back the other way with an empty pallet. I think she already has. He drove home slowly that afternoon. Down First Avenue, past the car wash, past the church with the changeable letter sign. His hands were steady on the wheel. He was not shaking. He noticed that about himself with a kind of distant interest. 12 years. He turned it over the whole drive. 12 years of a woman who would not let him leave the house without a lunch. 12 years of her hand on the back of his neck while he did the bills. 12 years of a person he would have described, without hesitation, as the most honest person he knew. She had taken $80,000 out of their daughter's future. She had looked him in the face and told him it went to her brother. And she had used that brother, the one she drove 3 hours in the dark to comfort, as the paper her lie was written on. Wesley pulled into his driveway and sat with the engine off. The kitchen window was lit. He could see Kendra moving behind it, putting something away in a cabinet. Ordinary. Completely ordinary. He did not go in angry. He went in calm, and he said good evening, and he ate the dinner she had made, and he asked Lily about her spelling test, and he laughed in the right places. And somewhere between the first bite and the last, without any ceremony, Wesley Carter stopped being a husband trying to save a marriage. He became something else. Wesley did not confront his wife. That was the first decision, and everything else came out of it. A confrontation would have felt good for about 90 seconds. It would have given him the pleasure of watching her face come apart. And it would have cost him everything he needed, because the moment Kendra knew what he had, she would move it, hide it, or burn it. So he did the opposite. He started paying attention. Once he began looking, he was amazed at how much had been sitting in plain sight. The phone, first. For months she had been carrying it everywhere. Into the bathroom. Out to the mailbox. She had changed the passcode in February and told him it was because of a work security policy, and he had accepted that without a thought. She had stopped leaving it face up on the kitchen counter where it had lived for 6 years. When a message came in, her hand moved to the screen before her eyes did, turning it flat against the table in a motion so practiced it no longer looked like anything. At the time, Wesley had thought she wanted privacy. Everybody wants privacy. He had never been the kind of man who read his wife's messages, and he had been quietly proud of that. Now he understood he had not been respecting a wall. He had been standing outside one. Other things came back to him. The mileage. She worked 3 days a week at an office 11 minutes from the house, and last October he had done an oil change and noticed the odometer was 5,000 miles further along than it should have been. He had assumed the shop wrote it down wrong. The perfume. Not new perfume. A different pattern to the old one. She had started wearing it on Tuesdays, the way she had stopped asking him about work. Not stopped listening. Stopped asking. The lock screen photo, which for 4 years had been Lily on a beach in Wisconsin, and which at some point in the last year had become a plain gray background. Wesley wrote all of it down. He kept a spiral notebook in the toolbox in the bed of his truck, under the jack, and every evening after Lily went to sleep he added a line or two with a date beside it. Not because any single item meant anything, because a machine never fails in one place. It fails in a pattern, and the pattern is only visible if you write down the small things nobody thinks are worth writing down. 11 days after the call from the bank, they were eating dinner. Lily was telling a long story about a girl in her class who had gotten in trouble for drawing on a desk. Chicken and rice. The window over the sink was open because it had been warm all week and the smell of somebody's grill was coming through the screen. Kendra's phone buzzed on the counter behind her. She did not react to the sound. That was the thing Wesley noticed. She kept looking at Lily, kept nodding, and then about 4 seconds later, in a movement that was meant to look casual, she turned her head and read the screen from where she sat. Her face did something. It was very small. The corners of her mouth pulled slightly and then settled. She stood up. "I need to take this. Everything okay?" Wesley asked. "It's work." She went out through the side door. Wesley kept eating. He asked Lily what happened to the girl who drew on the desk. He listened to the answer. And while he listened, he turned slightly in his chair so that the kitchen window was in his line of sight. Kendra was standing beside her car in the driveway, at the far end, where the fence blocked the view from the neighbor's house, but not from the kitchen. She had one arm wrapped around her middle. She was talking. Then she laughed, one hand going up to her hair. She was out there for almost 20 minutes. Wesley cleared the plates. He wiped the counter. He put Lily's homework folder in her backpack by the door. When Kendra came back in, her face had been rearranged into something tired and ordinary. Sorry. Billing thing. Who was that? Just a coworker. Wesley rinsed a glass and set it in the rack. What's his name? She paused. Not long, but he was counting now, and it was a full beat. Travis. Travis what? Cole. She opened the refrigerator and looked into it without taking anything out. He handles insurance claims. It's a whole mess with the provider code. Sounds like a headache. It is. She closed the refrigerator. Wesley dried his hands on the towel hanging off the oven door and did not ask another question, because he had gotten what he came for, and one more question would have told her that. Travis Cole. He wrote it in the notebook that night, sitting in the truck with the dome light on and the driver's door open and the crickets going in the ditch across the road. It would take him 3 more weeks to understand what that name meant, but the shape of it was already there. Travis Cole had not appeared 11 days ago. He had been in Kendra's life for more than a year, and Wesley could see the edges of that year now. Every strange evening and altered habit, an unexplained mile arranging itself around a man he had never met. He was not a stranger. He was the reason her phone had left the counter. And he was the man who had received $70,000 that belonged to an 8-year-old girl. Wesley found it in a folder. Not hidden. That was the part that took him longest to accept. It was in the bottom drawer of the desk in the spare room, in a plain manila folder in the middle of a stack of 11 others, filed between the homeowner's insurance and the warranty paperwork for the water heater. She had not hidden it because she had never imagined he would look. In 12 years, he never had. She had built her whole plan on the reliability of his trust, and that, more than the money, was the thing that sat in his chest like a stone. He took the folder out to the truck. He photographed every page with his phone, twice in daylight, then emailed the images to an account he created that afternoon. Then he put the folder back exactly as he had found it, at exactly the same angle, with the corner touching the divider the same way. Then he sat at the kitchen table for 6 hours with a legal pad while Kendra was at her mother's, and he did what he had done every working day for 19 years. He took the failure apart. The $80,000 had not moved once. It had moved 5 times. On the 9th, $12,000 had gone out. On the 11th, another 18. On the 12th, 20. On the 14th, 20. On the 15th, 10. Nolan's name was attached to the paperwork. His account number appeared in the records. Every document carried his brother-in-law's identity like a coat of paint. But only the last transaction, the $10,000 on the 15th, had actually landed in Nolan's account and stayed there. The other $70,000 had passed through and gone out again into a second account, and from that second account it had continued on. It ended with Travis Cole. Wesley sat back in the kitchen chair and looked at the legal pad and understood the architecture of what his wife had built. She had not simply stolen the money. Anyone can steal money. What Kendra had done was construct a story in advance, on paper, in a form that would survive being questioned. If Wesley ever found the withdrawal, the documents would say Nolan. If the bank ever asked, the documents would say Nolan. If a court ever asked, the documents would say Nolan. She had turned her own brother into the wall she stood behind. Nolan had not known. Nolan had been handed $10,000 and told it was a gift, and the gift had been the point. It made him a participant. It made him a man who had accepted money he could not explain. It made him the guinea pig in a system she was testing before she ran the real amount through it. And there was something worse than all of it. Travis Cole was not saving the money. He was not investing it. He was not stabilizing anything or paying off anything or building anything. He was spending it. Wesley found the fragments over the following 2 weeks, in receipts left in the console of Kendra's car, in a photograph she had not thought about, in a credit card statement she had folded into her purse. A newer truck, dark blue, with dealer plates in the background of a picture she had never intended anyone to see. Dinners at places that took reservations. A weekend in Chicago. $2,000 of electronics in a single afternoon in June. None of it was a fresh start for anybody. It was a man burning through money that was not his, fast, the way people burn through money that will never come again. Wesley confronted her on a Thursday night in July. He waited until Lily was at a sleepover because he was not going to do this within 2 floors of his daughter. He put the folder on the kitchen table. He put the legal pad next to it. He sat down. Kendra came in from the living room with a laundry basket on her hip and stopped in the doorway. "Who is Travis?" Wesley said. The basket came down onto the floor slowly. "You went through my things. Answer the question." "That's my personal." "Wesley, you went into my desk." "Who is Travis Cole?" "He's nobody." Her voice had gone up half a step. "He's a coworker." "I told you that." "Then why did $70,000 of our daughter's college fund end up in his hands?" Her face broke. It happened fast, and it looked real, and 8 weeks earlier it would have destroyed him. She started to cry. "You don't understand. I understand the dates. I understand the amounts. I understand that 12,000 left on the 9th of June, for days after I told you no." He tapped the legal pad without looking down at it. "I understand exactly what happened." "No." She was shaking her head hard. "No, you don't. You don't know what it's been like." And then, as he watched, she changed direction. He would think about that moment for a long time afterward, because it was the single clearest thing he ever saw. She stopped defending. She did not admit anything. She simply picked up a different weapon. "You've never cared about me." Wesley said nothing. "Not really. Not for years." Her voice steadied as she went. "You come home and you eat, and you sit with Lily and you go to bed. When was the last time you asked me how I was?" "Actually asked?" "Where is the money, Kendra? You're the one having an affair. With that job. With that house. With your little accounts and your little spreadsheets. Where is the money? You pushed me away." She was crying again now and pointing at him. "You pushed me away for years, and now you want to stand there and act like you're the victim in this. You stole from our daughter's account." "I didn't steal anything." It came out of her at full volume, and the kitchen light hummed, and somewhere outside a dog started barking. "It's a family account. I'm on it. Legally, I'm on it." Wesley stood up. He did not raise his voice. He had raised his voice exactly twice in 12 years, and both times he had regretted it, and he was never going to give her that again. "You took money that was not yours to take," he said. "You put your brother's name on it. And you gave $70,000 of an 8-year-old's future to a man you've been hiding in your phone since last spring." She sat down on the kitchen floor with her back against the cabinets and sobbed. Wesley picked up the folder and the legal pad and went out to the truck and locked them in the toolbox. Then he came back inside, stepped over the laundry basket, and went upstairs to sleep in the spare room. She did not follow him, but by the next afternoon, she had already started doing the other thing, the thing she was genuinely good at. She started telling people. It moved faster than Wesley expected. By Saturday, Kendra's mother had called. By Sunday, an aunt in Dubuque had sent Wesley a message he did not open. By the following Wednesday, a woman from Kendra's church who had never spoken to him in 6 years looked away from him in the parking lot of the grocery store. The story Kendra was telling had no dollar figures in it. That was the craft of it. He was controlling. He monitored her spending. He had never let her have her own money. He had gone through her private papers. He had accused her brother of theft. He had humiliated her in front of her family. He was cold. He had been cold for years. She had been trying to hold it together alone, and he had finally shown everyone who he really was. Not one version of the story mentioned Travis Cole. Patricia Mercer called him on a Tuesday evening. Wesley took it standing in the garage with the door up and the summer heat coming off the driveway in waves. "You're destroying this family," she said. "No greeting. Your daughter took money out of her child's college fund. She was helping her brother. That's what people do, Wesley. Maybe that's not how it works where you come from." Nolan received $10,000. The silence on the line went on long enough for Wesley to hear a television in the background of her house. "What?" "10,000, he said. "Not 80. 10. The other 70 went somewhere else." Patricia's voice came back, and it had a new sound in it. Not doubt. Something more careful. "You're making accusations you can't prove." "I can prove all of it." "Then why haven't you?" Wesley watched a car go past the end of the driveway. "Because I'm not trying to win an argument with you. he said. I'm building a file. She hung up. He set the phone on the workbench and stood there for a minute in the heat. That was when he fully understood the shape of what Kendra had done, and he had to admire it in the way you admire a well-built trap while your leg is in it. She had not tried to deny the money. She had made the money boring. She had made the conversation be about whether Wesley was a good husband, and once a family starts arguing about that, they will argue about it forever. Nobody in that family was asking where $70,000 had gone. They were asking whether he had been kind enough. Nolan broke it open. He came to the house on a Sunday afternoon in August. Kendra was there, packing a bag for Lily. Wesley was in the yard replacing a section of gutter, and he saw Nolan's old car pull in and knew immediately from the way the man got out of it what was about to happen. Nolan went straight past him without a word and in through the front door. Wesley put the drill down and followed as far as the entryway. You used my name, Nolan said. Kendra was at the bottom of the stairs with Lily's overnight bag in her hand. Nolan, my name is on $80,000. Lower your voice. Do you know what I've been doing for 2 weeks? He was shaking. Wesley could see it from 10 feet away, the tremor running down through his hands. I've been sitting in my apartment reading about what happens to people whose accounts get used to move money. I've been looking at my daughter and thinking about what happens to her if this goes bad. Aubrey, your niece. Kendra started to cry. I was trying to protect you. Protect me from what? Nolan's voice cracked open. Protect me from what, Kendra? I had nothing. I had $400 and a car with a bad transmission. What exactly was there to protect? You don't understand the situation I was in. You made me look like I stole $80,000 from an 8-year-old. He pressed both hands against the sides of his head. Mom actually asked me on the phone. She asked me if I'd spent it. My own mother asked me that. I never meant for it to go this far. Nolan lowered his hands. Wesley watched from the entryway, and he did not intervene, because this was not his to take. You didn't protect me, Nolan said. He was quiet now. That was worse than the shouting. That's a thing you're saying, so you don't have to hear the real one. Nolan, you used me. Kendra opened her mouth. Nothing came out. That was the first time in Wesley's 12 years of marriage that he saw his wife stop talking mid-argument. Not pause. Not regroup. Stop. She stood at the bottom of her own staircase holding her daughter's overnight bag, and she had nothing at all, because there was no version of the sentence that worked, and she knew it, and Nolan knew it, and Wesley knew it. Nolan walked out. The screen door banged. Wesley found him in the driveway with both hands on the roof of his car and his head down. I'm sorry, Nolan said, without looking up. In your house. In front of, is Lily here? She's at the neighbor's. Okay, good. He straightened up and wiped his face. Wesley, I swear on Aubrey I didn't. I know. You know. I've known for 2 months. Nolan stared at him. Then why haven't you said anything? To Mom? To anybody? They're out there telling people he stopped. They're saying things about you. Wesley picked up the drill from the grass where he had set it down. Let them. That doesn't bother you? It bothers me, Wesley said. It just doesn't change what I'm going to do. Julia Whitmore's office was on the second floor of a brick building downtown, above a print shop, with a window unit air conditioner that rattled every 40 seconds. She was somewhere near 60, with short gray hair and a habit of holding a document at arm's length and then bringing it slowly closer, as though she were negotiating with it. Wesley put a banker's box on her desk. What's this? Everything. She looked at the box, then at him. Most people bring me a shoebox of receipts and a story. I brought you documents. She took the lid off. Bank records, arranged by date, with a printed index on top. Every statement from the education account going back 4 years. The 5 transactions, each on its own page, with the corresponding transfer documentation stapled behind it. A 1-page summary showing $10,000 into Nolan's account and $70,000 continuing on. Photographs of receipts. A photograph of a dark blue truck with a dealer plate, with a date on the back written in Wesley's handwriting. The purchase history from the joint card, with the entries she could not explain highlighted in yellow. A typed timeline, 41 entries. First entry May 24th, last entry 3 days ago. Julia read for 11 minutes without speaking. The air conditioner rattled. Down on the street somebody leaned on a horn. Finally she set the pages down. Who put this together? I did. By yourself. I keep service logs for a living, Wesley said. 20 machines, 19 years. If you don't write it down when it happens, it didn't happen. She almost smiled. Then she took her glasses off, which he came to learn was the thing she did before she said something he was not going to like. I need to tell you some things, and I need you to actually hear them, because in my experience this is the point where good men do the thing that ruins their case. Go ahead. Do not threaten her. I won't. Not a raised voice. Not a text message you write at midnight. Not one sentence that could be read out loud in a courtroom and sound like a man losing control. I won't. Do not go find this Travis Cole. She looked at him steadily. I mean it, Mr. Carter. Do not drive by his apartment. Do not call him. Do not have a conversation with him in a parking lot. Wesley met her eyes. That thought has occurred to me. Of course it has. It occurs to everyone. It won't happen. Why not? Wesley thought about it because she deserved a real answer. Because the day I put my hands on him is the day I become the story, he said. And I'm not going to be the story. I'm going to be the man with the documents. Julia put her glasses back on. Then here's what you do. You protect your daughter, and you protect your property. In that order. Everything else is noise. That's exactly what I intend to do. He filed the following Monday. Kendra was served on a Wednesday afternoon while Wesley was at work, which was deliberate because Julia had told him that the worst thing a man can do is stand in the room and watch. The reaction came in stages, and Wesley cataloged them the way he cataloged everything now. Stage 1 was rage. For calls in 90 minutes. Then a message that said he was throwing away 12 years over a misunderstanding. Stage 2 was grief. She sat on the edge of the bed in the spare room at 11 at night and told him she had not slept in 3 weeks and asked him if he remembered the hospital, the promise, the paper cup of coffee. He remembered it. He remembered every word of it. That was precisely the problem. Stage 3 was the attorney, a man named Kessler from a firm in Iowa City, and within 10 days the story had a new shape entirely, printed on good paper. She had been emotionally abandoned within the marriage. Wesley had exercised sole control over the household finances. The funds had been intended for her brother as a family gift, consistent with a long pattern of family support. She acknowledged she had made errors in financial judgment. She denied any deliberate diversion of funds to Travis Cole. She denied that her relationship with Travis Cole was romantic in nature. Wesley read it twice, sitting in Julia's office with the air conditioner going. She doesn't deny the transfers, he said. No, she can't. They're on paper. Julia turned a page. She denies intent. That's the whole game now. She's not arguing about what happened. She's arguing about what was in her head when it happened. Can she win that? She can survive it. Julia looked up. I want you to be realistic. There's no confession coming. There's no moment where she breaks down on a witness stand and tells the truth. That's television. I know. What you have is bank records, messages, a set of explanations that contradict each other, and a trail of money. That's not a lightning bolt. That's a slow, ugly, unsatisfying accumulation. Wesley looked out her window at the roof of the print shop. The truth was going to be exactly that. Ugly, partial, never fully spoken aloud in any room by the person who owed it to him. But it was real, and it was written down. That's fine, he said. The courthouse in Cedar Rapids had a lobby that smelled like floor wax and old paper, and a bench along the wall where people sat with folders on their knees and waited to have the worst year of their lives summarized by strangers. Wesley wore a gray shirt and a tie he had bought for a funeral. He got there 40 minutes early. Julia arrived 20 minutes early and found him already sitting with his hands folded. You slept. Some. That's more than most. Kendra came in at 5 to 9 with Kessler beside her. She had lost weight. She looked at Wesley once, across the lobby, and then found something on the far wall to look at instead. The hearing itself was nothing like Wesley had imagined during the long nights when he imagined it. There was no gallery. There was no gasp. The judge was a tired man in his 50s who had a stack of files and a schedule, and he did not care about betrayal, and he did not care about a promise made in a hospital room in 2018. Kessler argued that the $80,000 had passed through an account bearing Kendra Carter's name, over which she held signature authority, and that the disposition of those funds fell within her lawful control as a joint account holder. Julia argued that the funds were marital property earmarked for the minor child's education, that they had been moved without the knowledge or consent of the other account holder, and that the structuring of the transfers through a third party's name demonstrated an intent to conceal. Wesley listened to his life get translated into that language and understood something for the first time. This was not a trial. Nobody in this room was going to decide whether Kendra was a liar. Nobody was going to decide whether she had betrayed her husband or used her brother or given $70,000 to a man she had been meeting in the afternoons. This room existed to divide property. That was all. And that distinction mattered more than everything Wesley had spent 5 months collecting. The court ruled that Kendra bore responsibility for her own financial decisions. It found that the transfers had been made from an account she controlled. But the $70,000 was gone. Not disputed. Gone. There was no evidence that she still held it, no evidence she had received any benefit currently in her possession, no asset anywhere with her name on it that represented that money. A judgment ordering her to return $70,000 she did not have would have been a piece of paper. The court did not order her to hand him the money. Kendra technically won the property dispute over that $70,000. Wesley received no personal repayment from her. Not a dollar. He sat very still while it was read out. Julia's hand touched the table beside his notepad, briefly, in a way that was not quite comfort. Across the aisle, Kendra let out a breath. Her shoulders came down. Kessler said something to her quietly, and she nodded. And there was a small moment, half a second, when she almost smiled. She walked out of that hearing believing she had won. Wesley watched her go down the hallway and understood something that she did not. She had won the $70,000. She had not escaped anything else, because the $10,000 was a separate matter. The court treated it as distinct from the $70,000 dispute, and it existed in the record with a name attached to it, and that name was Nolan Mercer. His name was on financial documents involving a transfer he had not authorized and did not understand. That put him in a separate civil matter entirely, one that had nothing to do with the divorce and would not end when the divorce ended. Nolan had to defend himself. He hired a lawyer he could not afford. He sat in offices and explained, over and over, to people who wrote it down without expression, that his sister had used his account and he had not known. It went on for months. In the end, Nolan agreed to repay the $10,000 he had actually received because the alternative was years of legal fees to fight over money he had already accepted. He did not receive $1 from the divorce. He did not profit from any part of it. He was a 33-year-old man with a new diploma and a teenage daughter who had gone to a graduation party and come out the other side of it owing $10,000 for a crime he had not committed. Wesley knew that. He never once forgot it. The house was different, and Kendra had never fully understood why. Wesley had bought it in 2011, 3 years before he met her. 31 years old, a down payment saved in a credit union account over 6 years of overtime. A 2-bedroom on a corner lot with a detached garage and a maple in the front yard that had been half dead, and which he had brought back. He had never refinanced it into both names. Not out of suspicion, out of habit, and because the rate was good, and because it had simply never come up. The court recognized it as separate property. Kendra had no ownership interest in it. Wesley told her on a Saturday morning in the kitchen. The window over the sink was open. It was October now, and the air coming through was cool, and the maple in the front yard was going orange at the top. "You need to leave." She stared at him with a coffee cup halfway to her mouth. "What? The house is mine. It was mine before you. The court has confirmed it. You need to find somewhere to live." "Where am I supposed to go?" "You'll have to figure that out." She set the cup down. "You're really throwing me out. Onto the street." "No. That's exactly what you're—" "No," Wesley said. "I am ending our marriage. Those are different things, and you know they are." Her chin started to go. He had seen that happen 1,000 times in 12 years, and there had been a time when it would have gotten her anything in the world. "You're heartless." Wesley leaned back against the counter and looked at her, and he took his time answering, because he wanted to say it once and never again. "No," he said. "I'm finished." She packed over 4 days. Wesley kept Lily at his sister's while it happened, because a child does not need to watch her mother take boxes out to a car. Kendra took her clothes, her books, the good mixer her grandmother had left her, her side of the bathroom cabinet. She took the family photographs, all of them, out of the albums and out of the frames, and Wesley let her, and later he would find that she had left every picture that had him in it, sitting in a stack on the dresser like something returned. She did not take the house. She did not take Lily's college fund, because there was nothing left in it to take that the court had not already frozen and protected. She did not take money from him, no spousal support, no settlement. She left with exactly what the court allowed her to keep, which was less than she had arrived with, because her father's inheritance was largely gone, spent in ways she had never explained to anyone, and the money she had secretly moved was somewhere in another state in another man's hands. On the last morning, she stood in the doorway with a box on her hip. 12 years, she said. Wesley was at the table with his coffee. Yes, that's all you're going to say. There's nothing you want to hear from me, he said, and there's nothing left in me to give you. She looked at the kitchen for a moment, the hum of the light, the chair where she had sat with a mug of tea, and told him $80,000 would make a real difference. Then she went out to her car and drove away, and Wesley stood at the window and watched until the car was past the stop sign, and then he went and cleaned out the gutters because they needed doing before the freeze. Wesley learned the rest of it in pieces, over months, mostly from Nolan. Kendra had been calling Travis Cole since August. At first he answered sometimes, then less, then not at all. Her calls went to a voicemail box, and then to a voicemail box that was full, and then to a recording saying the number was no longer in service. She drove to his apartment complex in early November. The unit was empty. The blinds were gone. A woman in the leasing office told her the tenant had given notice in September and left no forwarding address. He was gone. The man she had risked 12 years of marriage for had taken $70,000 and moved out of the state. The money was gone with him. Not held, not invested, not saved for a future they had talked about in the afternoons in her car. Gone into a truck and restaurants and a weekend in Chicago, and $2,000 of electronics on a Tuesday in June. Not spent on Nolan, not put into the family, not saved for anything, just gone. Travis had used her. And when the money stopped, he stopped. That was the part Kendra could not get past. Wesley understood that, in a distant way, the way you understand weather in another country. She had lied to her husband. She had used her brother's name and his account and his good faith. She had ended her marriage. She had taken her daughter's future off the table and put it on a card and let another man play it. And the person she had done all of it for had not even bothered to say goodbye. She called Wesley on a night in December. He was in the living room. Lily was asleep upstairs. There was snow starting outside, the first real snow, coming down in that slow, unhurried way it does before it means anything. He looked at the screen for 4 rings before he answered. Wesley. Yes. I made a terrible mistake. He did not say anything. He watched the snow come down through the porch light. I thought Travis loved me. Her voice was raw. I really did. I'm not making excuses. I'm telling you what I thought was happening. He stayed silent. He used me. He used me the whole time. I know. You know? I've known longer than you have. She made a sound that might have been a laugh. Can you believe me? That I didn't, Wesley, I never sat down and decided to hurt you. I need you to believe that one thing. Wesley thought about how to answer that honestly, because he was not going to lie to her. Even now, even end the call faster. I believe that you believe it. The silence stretched. Then she started crying, and it was not the crying he had seen in the kitchen in July. That had been a tool. This was a woman alone in a rented room in another city with nothing left in her hands. I lost everything. You lost the things you chose to risk, Wesley said. He said it quietly. He did not say it to wound her. He said it because it was the exact and complete truth, and he had been carrying it around for 6 months waiting for somewhere to set it down. There was a long silence on the line. I never wanted to hurt Lily, but you were willing to risk her future. Kendra did not answer. There was nothing to answer with. Wesley waited a moment, listening to her breathing, and then he said good night and ended the call and set the phone face down on the arm of the chair. He sat there a while longer, watching the snow gather on the railing. He did not feel triumphant. He had expected to once, back in the summer when he had imagined this exact conversation. He felt nothing much at all. Somewhere behind that, Faintly, he felt tired. Then he went upstairs and looked in on his daughter, who was asleep with one arm hanging off the side of the bed, and he tucked it back under the blanket and went to bed himself. Nolan came to the house 3 weeks later, on a Sunday, with snow on his shoulders. He stood on the porch and would not come all the way in. "You want coffee?" "No. I want to talk about the money." Wesley already knew what he meant. He held the door open until Nolan finally stepped inside and stood on the mat, dripping. "I know you didn't take it." Nolan shook his head hard. "I should never have accepted the 10,000. That's on me. That's the part that's actually on me. You didn't know. I should have asked questions." His jaw was tight. $80,000 went through my account, Wesley. My account. And I didn't know because I didn't look, because it was my sister. Maybe you should have asked. Nolan looked down at the mat. "But my name was on everything." "That wasn't your decision," Wesley said. "She made that decision without telling you, and she made it on purpose, and she made it because she knew you wouldn't check." Nolan raised his head. "Are you still angry with me?" "No." "Why not?" There was something almost desperate in it. "You should be." Everybody else in this family picked a side. Even the ones who believe me look at me differently now. "Because you didn't betray me." Nolan stood very still. Wesley went on, because the man needed to hear the whole shape of it laid out by somebody who had actually done the work. Kendra made the decision. Travis took the money. You got $10,000 you didn't ask for, and you got dragged into something you didn't understand. Those are 3 different things, and I'm not going to pretend they're one thing just because it would be simpler. Nolan swallowed. His eyes were wet, and he did not bother hiding it. "I'll pay back what I received. Every dollar of the 10. It'll take me a while." "I know, but I can't pay 70,000. I lie awake thinking about Lily and he stopped. "I can't. I'll never have it." "I don't expect you to," Wesley said. "I never did." Nolan pressed the back of his hand against his eyes. "I thought you hated me. I hated what happened." "That's different." "Yes," Wesley said. "That's completely different." He put his hand out. Nolan looked at it for a second. Then he took it, and his grip was too hard, and he held on a beat too long, and neither of them said anything about that. The matter between them was finished. Wesley forgave Nolan, not because the money did not matter. It mattered every single day. He forgave him because he had spent 6 months building a case out of documents, and the document said, clearly and without argument, that Nolan Mercer had done nothing. Punishing an innocent man to feel better would have been one more injustice stacked on top of the first one. Wesley had been many things that year. He had been cold. He had been relentless. He had been a man who photographed his own wife's paperwork in the bed of a truck and never once let his face change at dinner. He was not going to be unfair. That was the one line. A year after the graduation party, Kendra's life looked nothing like the one she had bought. Her marriage was over. Her brother did not speak to her. Her mother did, but there was a distance in it now that Patricia Mercer never named out loud and never managed to hide. Her father's inheritance was mostly spent. The $70,000 was in another state. Travis Cole had not been heard from since September. Her family knew what she had done, not the version she had told them, the real one. It had taken months to work its way through, the way these things do, in pieces at holidays, in kitchens after everyone else has gone to bed. And the man she had risked everything to impress no longer knew her name. Meanwhile, on a corner lot outside Cedar Rapids, Lily Carter's college account was being rebuilt. Wesley had started the week the divorce was final. He put in what he could, when he could, exactly the way they had done it before. He picked up weekend shifts. He sold the boat trailer that had been sitting behind the garage for 4 years doing nothing. He kept driving the Silverado. It was slower now because it was 1 income instead of 2, and because he was starting from close to nothing. He did not care. He had done it once. He knew exactly how it was done. Lily did not know every detail, and Wesley intended to keep it that way for a long time. She knew her parents were not together. She knew her mother lived in a different city now and called on Sundays. She knew there had been something about money. Wesley never turned her against Kendra. Not once. Not a single remark, not a tone of voice, not a silence that a child could learn to interpret. He had made a decision about that early, alone in the truck one night, and he held it the way he held everything else. Whatever Kendra had done to him, Lily got to have a mother. One afternoon in March, They were in the kitchen. Lily was 9 now, at the table with a school worksheet, chewing on the end of a pencil. Dad. Yeah. Why did you and Mom get divorced? Wesley turned off the faucet and dried his hands. He had known this was coming. He had thought about it for a year. He sat down in the chair across from her. When you're older, he said, I'll tell you everything. All of it. I won't leave things out, and I won't make it prettier than it was. But you have to be old enough to hold it, and you're not yet. Lily thought about that. Was it because of me? Something moved in Wesley's chest that had not moved in a long time. No. He reached over and took her hand. Listen to me. Not one part of it. Not 1 second of it. You never think that. Ever. She nodded slowly, the way children do when they are deciding whether to believe you. Then she looked back down at her worksheet and asked, in a completely different voice, the casual one she used for small things, Will you still help me go to college? Wesley smiled. It surprised him. How easily it came. That's one promise I will never break. 2 years after the graduation party, Nolan made his last payment on the $10,000. He drove over to say so in person, and he started to apologize again, and Wesley stopped him in the driveway. You're done. I just want to say, you're done, Nolan. You've paid more than enough for a mistake that was never yours. They stood there in the driveway for a minute in the cold. Then Nolan nodded and got back in his car, and after that he came around for dinner sometimes, and he brought Aubrey, and Lily thought her older cousin was the most impressive person alive. Lily's college account kept growing. The house stayed Wesley's. He replaced the furnace that November, finally, and the water heater the year after, and he trimmed the maple in the front yard every spring. Kendra eventually stopped calling. The last Wesley heard about her came through Nolan, second-hand and thin. She had moved to another city. She was working full-time now. She had started over, but Travis was gone. The $70,000 was gone. The marriage was gone. And the trust she had spent her whole adult life building inside her family, the reputation of being the responsible one, the one who handled things, the one everybody called about money, was gone too, and that was the one she could never buy back at any price. She had thought she could use her brother's name to hide the truth. She had thought she could make herself the victim. She had thought she could turn her family against her husband and bury the question in the noise. She had thought Travis loved her. And she had thought $80,000 would solve something. It solved nothing at all. Wesley thought about it sometimes, on the long, quiet drives home from work, with the fields going past and the radio down low. The most important thing was not that he had won, because in the divorce, he had not gotten the $70,000 back. Kendra had actually won that particular fight. She walked out of that courtroom without owing him $1, and no judge ever wrote down in any file that she had lied. He never got his revenge through the court. He got something better. His daughter kept her future. His home stayed protected, and he did not punish an innocent man for something he did not do. The woman who betrayed him had to live, every day, with the consequences of choices she made freely, with her eyes open, over the objection of a husband who had told her plainly and more than once exactly what she was risking. And Wesley Carter learned something that year that he never forgot. Sometimes karma is not watching the guilty person lose everything in a courtroom. Sometimes karma is watching them finally understand that the person they sacrificed everything for was never going to stay.